Hi guys, and welcome to our new topic in Year 8 Geography. Today we'll be talking about investigating the world, or our world as it is in your booklets, and we'll be focusing especially on time zones. First of all, class, have you ever wondered how exactly we work out differences in times around the world? When I was young, I never really got the or understood the idea until I actually took this course myself. But today, hopefully, we'll explain it to you and you'll get a better understanding of how time zones work. First of all, I just want you to have a think about when do you think time zones were actually created and why do you think they were created? That's the first part of today's lesson. The second part of today's lesson, you'll see your handout that I've given you, which is a world map and it's got time zones on it. First of all, we'll be talking about a bit about the history of time zones. So, time zones were something that were created to help people travelling throughout the world instead of arriving at different times around the world due to the time that was set. Time was set at when the sun was at the highest point of the sky, which is at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. You can imagine how difficult it would be, say, travelling around a country like Australia, for example, that you could follow the sun in a way to speak from the east coast all the way to the west coast or vice versa. So first of all, the time zone was created in England. So that's the 0 point, Greenwich, England, which is the international 0 point for time zones. So as of 1929, internationally recognised time zone of 0 was in Greenwich, England. So on your map, you'll be able to see this here, which is here. Okay? So sorry about the quality, but it's right down the middle here. You'll see that has a 0 on the top, yes? Okay. So, for you to understand this course, you'll have to understand which way the sun travels and which way time is added or subtracted. If you go east of Greenwich, England, which I've got my trusty globe here to show you. If you go east of England, which is here, if you go east, that way, you add time, okay? And if you go west, obviously you subtract time. So today we'll be focusing on how to actually come up with the time zones and answer questions that are based around time zones, really. So for the start of our lesson, we'll be focusing on how we actually figure out which time zone we're in. So first, to determine where your place is, so whether it's in the eastern hemisphere or the western, okay? So if it is east of Greenwich, England, so that's this way, you'll be earlier in time, okay? So which is another way of saying you add time. So, for example, we're in Sydney, Australia. This is where we're based. This is the time zone that we go off in Newcastle. So if you come down to the longitude, which we've been taught in earlier lessons, longitude is the vertical lines horizontally running from the South Pole to the North Pole. We're 9 hours away. So I'll explain that to you in a second how we've come up with that, but first you need to know how the longitude lines are formed. Longitude lines are formed by 15 degrees each longitude line. So each longitude line that you see on your handout, 1, 2, 3, 4, each hour is 15 degrees east or west of Greenwich, England. Okay, guys? So if you don't understand that, keep repeating this video because it'll sink in eventually. To understand how this is formed is 15 degrees, so 15 degrees from Greenwich, so you can either go east or west, and every 15 degrees there's a longitude line coming down which is an hour added or an hour subtracted from the GMT, which is a term that you should be familiar with, GMT, which is the time, pretty much is the time in Greenwich, England. So we'll say it's 12 o'clock in Greenwich, England now. So for example, if I wanted to find out the time in Greenwich, England, so somewhere that's west, so we'll look at Sweden for an example, which is just west of England. Greenland, which is just west of England. My mistake, class. Greenland, which is just west of England, which is 15 degrees west of England. So as you've been taught before, is 1 hour west. So as of 12 o'clock in the afternoon in Greenwich, England, the time would be 11 o'clock in Greenland, due to the fact that it's 1 hour west. 15 degrees, which is 1 hour west. So this is just a basic example. For a second example, if you go into the Eastern Hemisphere, we'll look at Oslo. So Oslo is 1 hour time zone, which we've covered, east of Greenwich. So Oslo's here, yeah? So as of 12 o'clock in Greenwich, England, Oslo, it is 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Which is, so you're pretty much just adding and subtracting time as you go. So throughout this topic, you can refer to this video just to understand that if you do, which way you travel around the world is which way you subtract or add time. So for example, if we're going to Perth, Australia, we follow our longitude line all the way up to seven hours in front. So if you look at that, 7 times 15, you work that out for yourself, guys. But that's how many degrees east Perth is of Greenwich, England. So and that's just a basic understanding of time zones. And hopefully you understand that. And please get back to me if you don't. Thanks, guys.